All right, good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to This Week in Pop Culture, the show in which we give you the goings on in the past week in the world of pop culture, whether we're talking about film and TV news, tech news, sports news, local news, and the like. We try to bring you up to speed so that way you are not left in the wind. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And as always, I'm not going to be alone in talking about the said topics for this past week. So without further ado, I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going? We're back for another week. As you see, it's all kind of crazy space stuff. I know it's not the topic of the show and it's not the forum, but they got a solar eclipse, meteor shower, and a new moon all in one day. I think it's something else, but crazy. But let's get to this week's topics, ladies and gentlemen.
Indeed. So Spills, we had quite a few things that happened this past said week. Chief of which being what you see in the background with the money flowing in the world of Spider-Man with his second week, his record-breaking second week in theaters. So we will be sure to talk about that. But there were a couple of other things to dive into. We do have one of the last few performances for a iconic actor who it will be, from what we understand, one of his last performances that were captured before his passing, and then the return of a horror icon. So with that, Spill, should we dive in?
Let's get it.
All right, excellent. So as always, folks, I always tell you that efforts will be made. This is a live show, but efforts will be made to timestamp the stories accordingly. So with that in mind, if you give me one moment, I will bring up our first story that we will dive into. And as I said, it's centered around actor who not too long ago, a couple of weeks, in fact, passed away. But this week we received news from through an outlet through Deadline, that is, of it being one of his final films. So let me bring that up for you guys now. And one thing that is unique about this week's show is most of our stories will be falling within our film and TV segment. I know a lot of times we go, one way or another, where we're doing film and TV or sports or any of those categories. But this week, all of our said stories fall under film and TV talk. So the first story deals with the late actor Sam Neill, who many of you, may know from a number of genre-related projects, whether we're talking about Jurassic Park, of course, or if we're talking about The Omen, The Omen 3. He was the adult Damien, or even one of my favorite horror films, Event Horizon, among other films, of course. But as I said, for me being subjective, those would be the films for me. But this was revealed in an exclusive from Deadline on Thursday that the late iconic actor would appear in the film adaptation of an iconic video game, The Legend of Zelda. If you recall, a few weeks ago on this show, we discussed his incredible career, some of which I just, discussed briefly just now, seeing that he had passed away on July 13th. While the identity of his character is unclear currently as it stands, according to the story, the film will mark one of the actor's last performances. So, Spills, your thoughts on The Legend of Zelda being one of Sam Neill's final performances?
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that this being his final performance is apropos. Firstly, condolences to his family, but his work in Lord of the Rings really makes me think that no, Sam Neill was not in Lord of the Rings. That
No,
was
I was about
what's
to
his
say
name?
no.
No, not Sam. Sam Neill wasn't in that, but his work, I think, would go well with the stylings of Zelda. Uh, Brandon and I were talking all offline on the pod before the pod. Y'all never will see that unless we get a Patreon going. But we talked about how we both were Genesis guys growing up. So we're not. I don't know about him. I'm not going to speak for him, but I'm not too versed in the Zelda world. Obviously, I know there's a flute involved. I've tried to play a couple of the games. I haven't sat and played them, but that's a very good fan base to be in. It's sad that he's only going to make this one movie, and they're going to have to try to recast him or find a place for him, a replacement. But maybe that's a good narrative structure. Maybe they'll use it narratively. But this seems like a great last project, something that probably will be. Um, I won't say as successful as Jurassic Park, but it's probably going to be seen all over the world for the next 50 years. So that's pretty interesting. How do you feel about it?
So I'll say this. I know there was one time in which video games were kind of like looked down upon as a property and what can be done with this cinematically. And games are far more sophisticated then than they were, in our Sega Genesis games. And don't get me wrong, I love our Sega Genesis game. I love the 32-bit, graphics, and having to blow the cartridge, when it wasn't working, and having those what is it, kind of those typical level formatted games where it wasn't a 3D surrounding world. It wasn't an omnidirectional world that you could explore. It was basically you went from one side of the screen and you went to the next side of the screen. But be that as it may, when you're talking about Legend of Zelda is an iconic game franchise. So by default there, I feel like you're already going to have eyes on this particular project because there is interest in Legend of Zelda when it comes to video games. I feel like that interest, unlike some other games, actually supersedes or expands beyond that, that medium that it has originated from. So, um, considering that, I think there will be interest there. I think it's really also going to be incumbent upon or dependent upon our first look at the project, um, just so people can get a feel of what they're going after. And then just to rewind a bit, and I know before Spills, you had mentioned that you were saying that Sam Neill was in Lord of the Rings, and I think I know why you might have believed that because for
Oh, he's
those
got a
of you,
twin.
well, no, not even that. Something that is kind of within the same wheelhouse as Lord of the Rings, and he was in a mini series of it, if memory serves. He played Merlin at one point, where he was a magical character. He was a magical figure known as Merlin in a miniseries. You guys can let me know in the comments if you remember him being a part of that said series. But yeah, he's actually been in that same wheelhouse of like dragons and what is it, wizards and all of that stuff. So not necessarily Lord of the Rings, but I guess you can say comparable in that same kind of genre when we're talking about King Arthur and Merlin. So and I've forgotten all about that until you brought up Lord of the Rings. I was like, oh, you know what? He actually did play a magical character, and it was within that type of world where you have like dragons and mythical creatures and stuff. So, um, but at this point, as I mentioned, it's no real details as to who he might play. It will be interesting to see if the film is successful, if it is a character that survives the first film, or if, as you said, Spills, uh, um, in terms of how they do the plot, if it's already written for that character to not make it through the first film. Or maybe, if it is a magical character, they could always, say that he took on a different, guise or appearance. Because I remember, I don't know if you recall this, when they were doing the Matrix films, the actress who had played, and I feel bad, I'm brain farting her name right now, but the actress who played the Oracle, she had passed away between them doing the Matrix Reloaded and the Matrix Revolutions, and they actually brought in another actress to continue that role for Revolutions, and it also included, similar to what you were talking about, they included a line in some, plot elements in terms of the script to explain why she looked different from Reloaded, why she looked different from Reloaded to Revolutions. I mean, she was in the original Matrix. She makes an appearance in Reloaded, but she had passed away between them shooting the second and third film. Ergo, they brought another actor to conclude or finish off her role in the third film. So it will be interesting to see how that's all going to work and what character he's going to play. Maybe a iconic character within the lore of Legends of Zelda. If there's some characters that you guys may foresee out there, because similar to Spills, I am more of a Sega Genesis guy, so Legend of Zelda was not really in my forte, back in the day. I had a lot of friends as the systems continued to get more sophisticated that were playing that game also. I know we were talking about that, Spills, with Nintendo 64 when I do remember, watching friends play the game where the game was not, 2D, it was 3D, where you were able to explore an open world type of format, which it looked like it was a lot of fun, but it just seemed so like complex to play in terms of everything that you had to do in a given time, over the course of that game. But be that as it may, let us know in the comments what characters you feel or theorize that Sam Neill could be playing. And then also, if you hadn't done it before when we mentioned, his passing a couple of weeks ago, what is your favorite Sam Neill film, and are you excited about seeing him, in one of his, and I'll distinguish that, one of his last performances that he has prior to his passing. So, but yeah, just let us know down below. But that happened on Thursday. I want to move on to Friday, the next day, as we have the return of a horror icon. So let me bring that up now. So, Mr. Leprechaun here, it was revealed once again, hat tipping to Deadline. Deadline was killing it this week. It was revealed that a new Leprechaun film is in the works. According to the article from the outlet, horror veterans Patrick Melton, as well as Marcus Dunstan, who both were writers on Saw 4 and Saw 5, have been tasked to pen the film with, and I apologize if I'm butchering your name. They have been tasked to pen the film with Oren Kules and Miles Kules, set to produce. And currently the plot is being kept under wraps. So we have an idea again of who our writers are and who are stepping into the producer chairs, but beyond that, not much else. So Spills, your thoughts on the return of the horror icon known as Leprechaun?
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to tell you some deep knowledge about Spills. I've been afraid of movies that Warwick Davis has been making before he ever did the Leprechaun. You see, there was a movie long ago called Willow. And
see what you did there.
When I was a little boy, Willow was a great movie because he was on an adventure. He was a little guy, so you could kind of feel like you were Willow. But then they went to a village and did some Odyssey-esque things and ended up all getting turned to pigs. And the scene where they get turned to pigs wigged me out, ladies and gentlemen. I was always afraid of it. So to see him returning to his iconic character, the Leprechaun, is great. Maybe
well,
we're
let
going to
me
see...
be clear. He's not coming back, but they are bringing the property back.
Oh,
so it's no guarantee.
Ladies and gentlemen, how you gonna make Leprechaun movie. You just had this picture up. You see how things happen? I feel like this is. Hey, you see this flying around beside me, ladies and gentlemen? The snow money. That's how they get Warwick back in the movie. He looks like he's ready. He's like, "Where's my money, ladies and gentlemen?" I know that maybe. Oh, what if Dinklage stole this? How would you feel if Dinklage stole this property? How would you feel? Do you feel like that's beneath him as an actor? But what do you think?
So let me say this. I don't feel like it would make. I don't feel like just because of the circumstances of the character that we should automatically assume that Peter Dinklage would be right for that role. Peter Dinklage is an incredible actor. Um, there shouldn't be any. I mean, and he's demonstrated it in his career that there shouldn't be any characters that he should be limited in terms of who he's capable of playing, because it doesn't matter, what the character is. He has the acting chops to be able to pull it off. With that said, I don't know if Leprechaun would be the next thing that he would want to do, because you already have a lot of baggage with Leprechaun, with it being iconically portrayed by Warwick Davis. We have that part. He just recently played, well, not recently, but relatively recently, he played another iconic figure, which is the Toxic Avenger. So, I don't know if he wants to do yet another character that already has a certain amount of gravitas or baggage or expectations with it. There is a certain freedom as an actor to be able to do a role in which you don't have to really worry about that, and you can kind of construct it on your own without having to worry about any added expectations of what people expect it to be, where you can kind of develop it on your own and then provide what you have created to the audience versus worrying about what they already assume about what you're going to bring to the character. So with that in mind, um, I'm kind of conflicted about it, because I mean, you do have effects that that are available these days, not just practically, but in terms of CG, that could create some fun things in terms of what Leprechaun is capable of, with the abilities that he has. But at the same time, they've already made an effort to reboot Leprechaun, and it wasn't the greatest. I'll be honest, I was very disappointed in what the final product was. So, I feel like this is one of those instances where I feel like the franchise has jumped the shark, and it needs to be one of those franchises that they just need to allow the original franchise to be what it is versus trying to revisit it again. I feel like it was, what is it? What's the saying? Like fire in a bottle, or whatever, however that saying goes, where it just, came out at the right time. You had the right synergy, you had the right things going for it at that time for it to work and for it to have the audience that it has. And not to say that it doesn't have an audience now. I'm just saying that I just feel like there's too much riding against it outside of the technology that's available. I feel like there's too much riding against it of trying to do it to, or make something that will top what Warwick Davis brought to that character. And I know you brought up the fact of Warwick Davis, of not being in a role, but let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, and this is no slight against Warwick. Warwick is quite a bit older now. I mean, he still, from what I understand, shows up at cons, but I mean, I don't believe he's in the headspace where he wants to put on the hours and upon hours of makeup to be the Leprechaun character. I'm sure he's appreciative
I
of.
will say this about Warwick Davis, though: the man
He's
is a
not young no
ham.
more.
He's a ham, though. He
He is. He
lives for
is.
Warwick Davis,
He
and I
is for
feel like
sure.
that was what that whole sitcom that he had that came out. He was just hamming it up all over town. So I do feel like
Absolutely.
I feel like his personality is such. Maybe I'm looking at the Leprechaun as like a Batman type figure. We're the leading men of Hollywood, which Fort Davis was. You know, he was a leading man of his category. He was a category leading man. I feel like you could get a category going where it passes Dan. You know, the next big guy that comes on the scene could don the shillelagh as it were.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. You know, find someone else who, you know, can bring the same charisma that Warwick, you know, has provided, which I is not going to be an easy feat. So good luck to that person. But I still feel like if they are going to do it, they're going to need to find someone younger, so that way, if they are continuing it as a franchise, obviously, um, there's an opportunity to continue to have that actor be in that role. Because I mean, I think people kind of take it for granted. It is a very, it not only is it a psychologically tolling, you know, role, because you know you can. It takes a lot of patience to be able to put on all the makeup and the prosthetics that you would need to be able to portray that character. There's also the matter of the physicality to play the role, where you're doing a lot of, you know, physical things, you know, in that said role as that leprechaun, whether it's, you know, the damage that you're inflicting to others, and you know the stunts that are involved with that, or even the damage that the other characters that are trying to get away from you are inflicting upon you. You know, as that character, as the big, you know, bad or the big villain or the monster, you still have to also be physically able too. And I mean, I'm looking at Warwick Davis. You know, he's almost 60. In a couple of years, he'll be 60, and you know that's quite different than someone who is, you know, late 20s, early 30s, taking on that said role, especially if it is something that you're trying to turn into a franchise that may last 10, 15 years. And I mean, I don't think we, you know, more power to Warwick if he, you know, if he's for it. But I mean, me personally, I don't want to have Warwick in a you know, in a what is it, a hand, what is it, a wheelchair or a cane, doing you know, doing different quips and riddles as a
He
leprechaun. I
already,
don't
the
know if that's gonna
character
work.
already has a cane, ladies and gentlemen. He's got the shillelagh. He hits people with it. It's part of the mythos. I don't see why he can't continue to play this. He was born. It was a position he
Unless
was born to play, ladies and gentlemen.
unless this is one thing they could do. They could still kind of have their cake and eat it too. Maybe what they can do is they can have him in the role, and they can have a younger, maybe a, you know, a son or you know, next generation leprechaun that he is collaborating with, that he's trying to show the tricks of the trade to and trying to train. That, I mean, that might be interesting. Maybe that way you can still have the original OG in there, but you can have someone new in there. But yeah, outside of that, with him just being, you know, him himself, considering what you need to do, you know, the toll that it would take psychologically with the makeup that's involved, you know, dealing with that day after day, and then also dealing with the physicality of the role. I don't know if he would be down to do it unless they throw him a truckload of money.
You
That's what
see,
I'm
that's what I'm
saying.
saying. Like,
And it's gonna have to be an insane truckload of money. Because as I said, like, he still goes to cons, and he, I mean, from what I understand, he does really well at you know, at trade shows when he makes appearances there. So if you could do that and still make, you know, decent, you know, a decent living doing that, and not have to like put your body through all these, you know, crazy stunts. I mean, I don't know. I would take the appearances of
they
just
got
doing the
computers for the
autographs.
stunts now. He could do a Ben Affleck and just have all the crazy scenes be CGI.
I guess. But let us know
Y'all
in the
said that
comments.
the CGI Batman was the best Batman ever. CGI Leprechaun could possibly be the best Leprechaun ever, ladies and gentlemen. I'm saying it's possible.
I guess, y'all. But let me know in the comments how you guys feel with the Leprechaun, of them working on a brand new one. Would you like to see Warwick Davis come back? Personally, I feel like they should get someone new, but maybe you guys feel differently. Maybe you feel like, you know, you can't do a Leprechaun film without Warwick Davis, and that's perfectly fine. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But you know, let us know in the comments one way or another. But with that, we're going to get into our main topic. And this was from Saturday. But yeah, let us know about Leprechaun, your thoughts on them doing a brand new one and working on one. But yes, you see it here in the background with a brand new day. Of course, the latest entry in the Spider-Man franchise that we have from the MCU. And this was as of yesterday morning. Brand New Day was on track to hit 143 million this weekend, making it the eighth film to pull off at least 100 million in its second weekend, and the fifth MCU film to do so. Even more impressive, at 143 million, it would be the third highest domestic gross for a film's second weekend. So, Spills, your thoughts on the history being set by Brand New Day?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why Sony's never going to let Spider-Man go. Because the boy print money. He prints money. Just like if you put Spider-Man on a t-shirt, that's a cool t-shirt. You put Spider-Man on anything. It's just crazy. We've been talking about how badly the Marvel movies have been doing, but this movie did 1.6 billion, something like that, in the foreign box office. This number is just talking about the domestic box office. So they printing money over there. We're all having fun watching them make these movies. It's great to see what they've done with it. It's kind of crazy now. So, would you say that Tom Holland is now Spider-Man, even though to you and me, Spider-Man is always going to be Tobey Maguire? How do you feel about this? Do you think that Tom Holland is now Spider-Man because he's Spider-Man with the money, or what do you think?
So here's the thing. I can appreciate us having more than one Spider-Man. I've been able to live through each of the eras of Spider-Man. I've lived through the Tobey Maguire era. I've lived through the Andrew Garfield era, and still now living through the Tom Holland era. And what I've always said is, and people can take it or leave it on what it is. Tobey Maguire will always be, for me, and it's just subjectively, will be Spider-Man for me. But in terms of talking about the duality of the character, I've appreciated what each actor has brought to the table. Tobey Maguire has been a terrific Peter Parker, an outstanding Peter Parker. He's been a pretty good Spider-Man, but I feel like he's an outstanding Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield, and I think we talked about this on offline before, Spills, but I'll reiterate it here, is that for Andrew Garfield, I always thought that he was a great Spider-Man because he, just as is the case with Spider-Man, typically it's a character that is very charismatic and can, make a lot of quips and jokes whenever he is in that moniker of Spider-Man. And he's the type of character that, a lot of villains are trying to get the character to shut up because he's always like joking and making clips and things as he is fighting them. And I liked how they kind of dived into that side of the character a lot. But I just felt he was too cool to be Peter Parker. I didn't really buy him as like a geeky, nerdy, character. He's perfectly fine as Spider-Man. When he was in that outfit and he was doing the quips as Spider-Man, I loved it. But I just felt like as Peter Parker, he was way too cool of a person to be Peter Parker. Now, when we're talking about Tom Holland, I feel like because of the prior iterations of Spider-Man, he's been able to find a balance of what is needed for Peter Parker as well as what is needed for Spider-Man. He has the physical tools because a lot of people, forget about this, but he is, what is it, a trained dancer or a trained, no, not dancer, but gymnast. So like he has a lot of those physical tools to do a lot of those stunts that you see. But outside of that, acting chops wise, he's able to pull off either the qualities that you would have in Peter Parker to be that every man, to be that every kid that it, under normal circumstances would seem like, regular Joe Schmo, but underneath the surface, knowing that he is a character that has been imbued with incredible power. So I feel like even though I feel that way about the first two Spider-Man that I was talking about, you wouldn't have gotten the balanced performance of Tom Holland without those two actors to establish those respective foundations. So, I mean, maybe you feel differently than me.
I think so. I think that obviously I feel like they did Tom Holland the service that they did not do Andrew Garfield, whereas they wasted a movie redoing the origin story instead of just letting him be Spider-Man. Like,
Okay, that's
he's
fair.
Spidey.
That's
I
fair.
think that because they just introduced Spider-Man, they just introduced him as a fully formed Spider-Man. You didn't have to worry about how he got his powers or any of that stuff. They just drop him right in to the Marvel universe. And I think it helps that he's got the whole Marvel universe. So it feels so much more Spider-Man-y rather than like, because I feel like the earlier movies made Spider-Man into a Batman character where it's like, this is his town, he runs the town. Spidey is a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You might catch him on a train. You'd be like, yo, what are you doing on the train, Spidey? He'd be like, ran out of fluid. I gotta bing bong boop. So that's
Right.
very interesting. But again, they're printing money over here. I like that they did homages in this movie, obviously.
Yeah, sure. The
To
comic homages.
Yeah, they did homages and also homages to the previous films, like the costume. They try to get a costume to look like the Tobey Maguire costume that we all loved. So I mean, it's wonderful. Like, as a kid, we watched that Spider-Man show on Fox, and we would just imagine. I'd be like, they could never make Spider-Man into a movie because it looked weird if he was shooting the webs and swinging. Like, it would just look weird. But they figured a way out. They always do. But it
Right.
was just amazing, truly amazing.
For sure, for sure. But again, kudos making 143 million. There are a lot of movies out there that would be happy to make 143 million on its opening weekend, let alone its second weekend.
No,
So
total. They'd be like, please give us 143 million total.
right. So especially currently in this day and age that we have with movie theaters, where a lot of theaters and just the industry in general has been struggling because of the hikes that we're seeing with theaters. I mean, Spills, we're old enough to remember a time where theaters were charging what, $8, $7 for a movie, and these days we're talking about $20, $20+ just to go to a movie, and that's not even counting concessions. Where like I went to a concession recently at a theater, and a small popcorn was $9. I'm like, it's $9.
$9 American.
I'm
A
like, bro,
popcorn.
like a small popcorn is $9. A water is $6. Like, what's going on here? Why are we paying, arena prices at a movie theater? Like, I mean, movie theaters was something to pass time that you enjoyed because, you didn't want to have to go to a sporting event, and you didn't want to have to go to, a concert where you were paying these crazy prices, but you still wanted to be able to escape for a couple of hours and to enjoy something, for a couple of hours. A film, genre related a film, be it horror or fantasy or superheroes or mystery or whatever the case is. So yeah, like it's obscene now, like what we have in terms of the prices that we're paying these days at a movie theater, and that's trickled down to the what is it, the attendance that you're seeing at theaters, where far fewer people are going to theaters, or if they are going to theaters, they're going far less frequently and relying upon their streaming services to be able to do that. Because now, what I just mentioned in terms of what you were paying for a movie ticket covers, tons and tons of content within a month. So you're paying,
Mm-hmm.
what you're paying for a movie from like 30 years ago to go to a movie theater 30 years ago, and instead of just paying the $9 to see, that movie, you pay $9 to cover the whole month, and you have hours upon hours of content. Now, don't get me wrong, there are varying degrees of satisfaction with some of that content. You know, some of it is kind of meh, kind of mid, but there is some awesome stuff in there, you know, in addition to some of the mid related stuff that you have in there. So yeah, it's very fascinating to kind of see where people's headspace is. And unfortunately, you know, with what we're seeing with Brand New Day, it's also, unfortunately, I feel, reinforcing the current pattern that we have with theaters in general, because we've talked about this before, Spills, but the idea that when we have movies, we don't have a lot of movies that are kind of mid-tier movies, if you know what I mean, or mid-budget movies. We don't have those like 30 or 40 million dollar murder mystery movies, really, or any of the kind of those movies that are not low budget movies, but they're not huge blockbusters either. And these days, we're dealing with either extreme. You either have the really low budget movies that have been shot on a shoestring budget, which is getting reinforced, you know, regardless, you know, the films are outstanding, but I still feel like it's reinforcing, you know, what we're seeing with the current climate right now. You know, films like Backrooms or what is it, Obsession, where, you know, these are films that were not made for a ton of money. When you don't have, you know, 8 million different all-star cast members in it. And don't get me wrong, you have some, you know, especially with Backrooms, you know, who they have in Backrooms. But typically, I was just saying on average, while Backrooms may be the exception with some household names, was a lot of those individual, you know, those independent films, those small shoestring budget films, they have, you know, folks that are not household names, yet the story is able to get, you know, carry the film through to audiences. And you either have that extreme, or you have the huge big blockbuster extreme that you have with a Spider-Man or an Avengers Doomsday, which we're getting at the end of the year. That is what, a $200-300 million budgeted movie that you either have the huge blockbuster here, or you have like I said, the shoestring budget film. And it doesn't look like that pattern is going away anytime soon, because as we're seeing with, you know, the films like I said, Backrooms, Obsession, and there was another one out there, I believe it was Iron Lung, that, you know, are reinforcing the current climate that we have now, where we're not going to really have any mid-tier, mid-level films. So it'll be interesting to see if that pattern gets broken, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon, especially with what we're seeing with, you know, films like Spider-Man and the other films I just mentioned that are shoestring related budgeted films.
Yeah, the industry is totally changing, ladies and gentlemen.
Indeed. So, what about you guys out there? I'm assuming those out there have seen Spider-Man Brand New Day at this point, with it being week 2. So let me know out there if you guys enjoyed it, if you had any issues with that said film. But outside of that, I mean, that's pretty much going to do it for us here at This Week in Pop Culture. We have a shorter show this go around, but you can catch us a little later, because we do have the finale of House of the Dragon that's happening later on tonight. Excited about that, and excited to see, you know, what comes of some of our characters. We have some potential portrayals on the way, seemingly. So very interested to see what will, you know, come of that, and who will be left standing by the end. Because from what I understand, they're only going to be doing 4 seasons. So with this coming season being the 3rd, they're essentially setting the table for the last run of episodes that we'll have for House of the Dragon. So be sure to come back with us for that tonight at 9 o'clock. maybe starting a little early to be able to talk about the prior episode, just to, recap things before we, get into the live episode. So be sure to join us. And then in a couple of hours, actually, well, not even a couple of hours, in an hour and some change. Well, no, I stand corrected. It is in a couple of hours. Didn't have a chance to do it because I was at a con this weekend helping out. But we'll be talking about the latest episode of X-Men 97. So make sure that you stick around for that because we will be doing so with that as well. But going to do it for us here at Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe out there. And I want to give Spills a shout out. I know he had a skedaddle just now, but giving him a shout out. You can find him at Truly Spills or Truly Spill, I should say. Hold on. Looks like he may be back with us. Maybe he was having a glitch. Hold on. Spills, I wanted to punt it over to you before we head it off. Can you tell folks where they can find you?
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Again, you can see me at Truly Spill. I was having some slight audio issues, but check me out on Instagram.com and Truly Spill, and we can talk more about Spider-Man making all that money. So back to you, Brandon.
Excellent. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X and then Brandon Choi _ENT on IG. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there and see you guys soon. Peace.
Peace.